Hey guys, continuing in our series of interviews with prominent head coaches from some great powerhouse programs all across the country. Tonight is no different. We welcome the head coach for the St. John Bosco Braves from Bellflower, California, head coach Jason Negro. Coach, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Larry and Joe. Super excited to be a part of this program.
Coach, well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have tonight. When Joe called me and shot me a text, I didn't think that I couldn't pick up the first couple of times, but he kept hounding me. And then he finally shot me a text. He says, "How about Jason Negro from St. John Bosco?" I called him back immediately. I was like, "Yeah, let's get him on." So we are thrilled to have you on tonight. Joe's going to lead us off on our questions. So Joe, go ahead and take it away.
All right, Coach. Hey, thanks again for being with us. On our board, everyone refers to you and your top rival as Thing 1 and Thing 2. So we're glad to have you on tonight. So we'll be 2 for 2 in that respect. So our first question that we got from one of our posters, his name is One Since 71. He said, once you were hired at St. John Bosco, what did you implement to turn them into the national power they are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that we had to do was change the culture on the campus. We really haven't changed much in terms of the demographics of the school or the philosophy of the school. I'm a graduate of St. John Bosco, graduating in class of 91. So I understand, the Salesian education and what we're trying to accomplish from that standpoint. What we had to do when I arrived was change the mindset within our entire football program. It had been highly successful against teams outside of the conference, but then once they got into the conference, they had to deal with a lot of struggles and really couldn't get over the hump on beating some of the powerhouse teams like Servite, Mater Dei, Santa Margarita, Orange Lutheran, and schools like that. So it was about changing the culture, trying to do that. And I think where we really kind of focused on that was in the weight room. I think we really changed kind of the mindset and what we wanted to try to do in terms of up front, in our league. You have to be big and strong and physical. And I think that's something that we were able to do right away. Bosco's always been a school that's got a lot of talent. Yeah. So from a skill position standpoint, we're never void of talent. It was up front that we were losing games and starting to take a look and reflect upon, some of the losses that the school had prior to me getting there. It was in the trenches. So we fixed that, changed the culture, started bringing in a winning mentality, and then it kind of just snowballed from there.
Coach, you said that you're a 91 graduate of St. John Bosco. So what drew you back to become their head coach? And with the success that you've had, what keeps you there?
What drew me back was the opportunity to be in this league, to coach in arguably maybe the toughest conference in the country. I know that's kind of loosely thrown around, and a lot of people try to challenge that and question it, but I think 3 of our teams were in the top 5 of the country last year at one time in Max Prep in high school, Football America and your guys' rankings. We're always at the top. Somebody in our league is always right there. So it was the opportunity to come back and test my skill set as a coach against some of the great minds that, were the head coaches in the league at the time. And, it's crazy that this league chews people up and spits them out. I mean, I'm the second most tenured coach in the league at 12 years, going on 13. I think Bruce has been around for like 30. And that guy's never going away, it seems like. And then after that, it's like 2 or 3 years is the longevity of the coaches in the league. So it's a very challenging, school. It's a very challenging league to participate in. And what keeps us relevant is, our willingness to challenge ourselves against the best teams in the country. We already are doing that in the league portion, but now how can we expand to do that during the non-league portion? And certainly our playoff brackets are one of the toughest in the country as well. So it's all about that mindset of trying to push your program forward, trying to raise the bar just a little bit higher, and then let Bruce come try to catch me, or Servite and Troy trying to catch them, and so on and so forth. And I think it's what makes us all better. And that's basically where we're at. And it's kind of the iron sharpens iron type mentality that this program has, as well as the rest of the league.
And Larry, the thing that we did a couple of years ago, I had done, when I first started the company, I started doing these games around America, like X region or X state versus USA. So every year now we do a Trinity League versus USA event, and that's increasing the exposure of his league and those top 3 teams every year that play. And it even more so now, if you go to Max Preps, two of the three teams are literally the most followed team in all of America, followed high school football team in all of America. So that extra exposure, him and Matter Day and his league taking on the best every year, that's only helping the cause.
Hey, Joe, listen, along those lines, if coach is up for it, listen, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet right here tonight on nationalhsfb.com. Joe, you need to put this together. Trinity League versus Region 1 7A of South Georgia. How about that? We meet in Dallas and duke it out.
That'd be great. How great would that be? I mean, Lowndes, Colquitt, Valdosta versus Mater Day, St. John Bosco, and Santa Margarita. That'd be awesome.
Yep. Coach, in 2019, that was a magical season for you, right? You guys were the undisputed national champions. You were named Max Prep's Coach of the Year. What did that mean to you and your program? Because you got some other prominent programs that you're competing with for FaceTime out there, right? So what did that magical season mean to you and your program?
I think it just validated all the hard work and the commitment to trying to be as excellent as you possibly can by that culminating, season. And, beating Mater Day in the CIF section game the way that we did, it was one of the greatest high school football games, I think a lot of people say, that they've ever seen. I mean, it was 39-35. DJ Uyangalele was our quarterback, and Bryce Young was the quarterback for Mater Day. So, we're talking about two 5-star type recruits, one's at Clemson, one's at Alabama, and just won a Heisman Trophy. So that's the type of talent we get in our league. And then we had to cap it off by beating De La Salle in the state game. And they're certainly one of the top programs in the country. So for me personally, it just validated that, what we're doing and the progression that which we're taking our program is in the right step. And we're going in the right direction. We're doing the things that we feel is in the best interest of the young men in our program that are competing. They're able to play in some of these big prominent games. But the whole idea and the concept behind our program is the development of our athletes to get them ready for college. And now you're starting to see our kids leave these programs because the games are so big and so much, enormity to them that they're stepping on college campuses and they're playing right away. So it just validated that the work that we're doing, it's actually paying off and we're trending in the right direction.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Our second question, Coach, is from Body Surf. He's a frequent poster on our site. He's actually a Mater Day fan. The past 2 seasons, you rotated your quarterbacks every series. In hindsight, was that the best thing to do in your opinion, or would you have done it a different way going forward?
Philosophically, here at Bosco, it's not something that we wanted to do. We always want to kind of, settle in on a guy and let him kind of take the reins and go from there. And, but we were obviously faced with a challenge at COVID in 2020, and we didn't play a season. So my 2 quarterbacks at the time were Caton Hauser, who's now at Michigan State, and Pierce Clarkson, who's going to be our starter coming up this upcoming season, who's the Louisville commit. Those 2 guys were going into the season in 2020 and hadn't even had an opportunity to play a varsity football game. Pierce was going to be a sophomore, Caton a junior. He was a transfer from Liberty in Las Vegas, but he didn't play as a sophomore because he was injured. So I had no film, nothing to really evaluate those 2 on. So basically, since our season was shifted to the spring and we were only going to play a league season, plus 1 preseason game, it gave me the opportunity to be able to try to develop 2 kids at once. And neither one of them were able to separate through that spring season. We went into the summer, into the abbreviated off season, going into the 21 campaign, and we still didn't have enough data that was going to allow us to separate those 2 guys. So we just rolled with it. They were great kids, incredible teammates. They're exactly what, you would want as a coach. Their families embraced the situation that we were in. And whenever you're in a situation like that and you feel as a coach that both kids give you an equal opportunity to be successful and win, you got to roll with them. You do it at all other positions. We just happen to have to do it at the quarterback position. In hindsight, I can't tell you whether if we would have picked one or the other, would have that changed. Yeah. Us losing in the semifinal game to Servite or beating Mater Day during the league game. I can't tell you that because that's 2020. In hindsight, I will tell you this. I don't regret my decision. We developed 2 really good, talented kids, and we're better off as a program for it.
And they're going to the next level, both of them.
And that's ultimately the goal, Joe. Honestly, you want to win games. That's your primary purpose. You look at team first, individual second. But at the end of the day, our kids embraced the opportunity in which they were given. Their teammates rallied around both of them, and I rode with both of them. And I don't know if I could say that I would have changed anything at this point.
Yeah. And this day and age, a lot of players and their families don't have any patience.
Right.
Those two prove that, hey, if you trust the process, do what you're supposed to do, work hard, you could get to the promised land, have a great high school career, and play at the next level. And I know I've seen also a lot of your backups also get offers, which is great for the program and shows people not to bolt when you're not playing and go trust the process and keep working hard, and you'll get there eventually.
Right. I mean, we live in a transfer culture now. I mean, you're seeing it at the high school level, and now it's trickled all the way up to the college level, where the transfer portal is just packed with kids trying to look for better opportunities, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, if it's America, you want to have an opportunity to go and try to, pave your path the way that you want to go. But what happens all too often is kids make mistakes. They listen to the wrong people. They jump ship. They try to go somewhere else because the pastures are always greener, but they finally, arrive at that new destination and realize that, man, that's not what's in my best interest. If I'm not competing at the high school level, how am I going to go compete at the collegiate level when they're trying to actively recruit my replacement? Right. So for us, these two kids, you got to give them a lot of credit. Pierce stayed, Caton transferred in, although he didn't have, that great of a resume coming in with him. Both those kids continued to develop through those 2 years, and I think they're going to be better off for it. Now Caton's at Michigan State. He's an early enrollee, so he's already competing, trying to win that starting quarterback job. And I don't think he would be as prepared right now in East Lansing had he had not gone through what he did over the past 2 years at Bosco. And I got to give a lot of credit to them. And most importantly, their parents. They believed, they trusted in the process. And that's rare nowadays in youth sports for the parents to actually listen to the coach and say, okay, I'm going to pass my son off to you. You are the expert. We're going to defer all decisions based on his playing time to you. And then they're going to support it and not back talk. And that's kind of the sign of a positive culture that you've built in a program. So again, it validates what we're doing is the right thing here in Bellflower.
Coach, you've talked a lot about, players so far, and you've had a lot of really, really good players go through your system. You named a couple of them a while ago, DJ being one of them. Are there players that stick out in your mind over the 12, 13 years that you've been coaching? Are there special players that really stick out in your mind? If so, who can you name them? Who are they?
Oh, gosh, man. It goes all the way back. I mean, one of the first quarterbacks we had was Renee Medina. He's currently the offensive coordinator at Long Beach Poly, which is kind of cool to see one of our former players coaching at a high level. One of the top players of all time is a young man named Jaleel Wadood, played 4 years at UCLA, phenomenal player there. Nigel Hell is the son of the ex-rapper, young Nate Dogg, is Nigel, and he's now a rapper. So he just got signed with Death Row Records. So can't forget about him. Sean McGrew was a running back, played up at Washington. Josh Rosen, Quentin Davis was a quarterback that went to Fresno State. So we've got so many guys. Wyatt Davis is playing with the Vikings in the NFL. Jacob Teote Mariner is playing with I believe he's with Carolina right now. We got guys all over the place. I got two kids in the USFL. One is Damian Mama as an offensive lineman. Nico Falah is another offensive lineman playing in that league. So for us, it's just really great and exciting. Some of the newer kids, Trent McDuffie's probably going to be a first-round draft pick here in a couple weeks. So there's just so many of them. And if they're watching this, they're going to be mad because I didn't mention their names. But DJ, Logan Loya, Chris Hudson. I mean, there's just so many. I could go on and on and on. We've got 74, 75 kids right now actively on, 41 different college rosters across the country. And that's pretty special.
Do they ever call you up and say, Coach, I don't know why I made that decision in this ball game. Can you help me think this through? Do they ever call you up and ask you for advice once they left your program?
Oh, man, kids are never wrong. So, no. You know what? The greatest thing about our kids is they all come back to campus. They want to work out. They mesh right in. I mean, it's crazy how even in the offseason during our workouts, at one time we had Bo Collins, DJ, Josh Alford, Chris Hudson, all practicing with us this spring. Just they mesh right in. They get into the drills. They understand our concepts. They still remember, the schemes and what we're trying to do. And I got, college guys throwing against my high school defensive guys, or vice versa. And it's just all about, the family that which we built at Bosco. It's a brotherhood, but they do come back. Larry, that's a great question. I mean, that's how you kind of, evaluate yourself as a coach, is how many kids come back to say they're thankful or appreciative of the work that which you put in. And there were some good days and bad days with all of those kids. And they were all very coachable. And I think that's why they have success today. And they always come back and say thank you and show their appreciation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, Coach, here's a question from another Cali poster of ours, Lion Hurricane Nick. Wants to know, out of all the out-of-state games you played since you started, what's the most memorable one?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think probably the most memorable, there's two of them I think that stick out to me. One of them was we played in 2000. Well, both of them were in 2016. 2017. We went down to Fort Lauderdale to play Thomas Aquinas, and that was a phenomenal game. We were coming, into that game as a defending state champion here in California, and Coach Harriet does a phenomenal job down there. And we played in one of the craziest type weathers. It was pouring down rain, and it was hot and humid in South Florida, and something we had never experienced. And we were taking on one of the top 5 ranked teams in the country. And at the end of regulation, it was 3-3, I think the game was, and went into overtime. Mm-hmm. And then we played this wacky overtime rule where they put the ball on the 10-yard line, which I had no idea about because we're in Florida. Yeah. And we played that game. We ended up losing 9-3. But gosh, that was a great experience. And then a couple weeks later, we flew out to DC to play St. John's, which we were down like 17-7, came back and ended up beating them 21-17. That was DJ's breakout game. Mm-hmm. We inserted him in the fourth quarter. He led us to 2 touchdowns. We ended up winning the game by 4 and came home, and he took us all the way to the finals that year. So as a sophomore. So guys, there's so many. We played at the University of Cincinnati against St. Xavier in 2016. That was a phenomenal experience for us. And we played St. Louis High School when Tua Tagovailoa was the quarterback at Aloha Stadium. So that was pretty sweet as well. And we got a couple big ones this year. So going out of state's what it's all about. Giving your kids an opportunity to go experience things. They're life memories.
Yeah, and Larry, just so you know, it's been all over Twitter since he released the schedule. Coach has taken his team two road games.
Right.
They're going to Texas to play Allen in one of the most famous high school football stadiums in America. Right. And then they're going to Oregon to play Central Catholic at the home field of the University of Oregon, Outson Field, I think they call it, right, Coach? Outson Field? Yeah.
Outson Stadium, yeah.
So how cool is that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to do this. There's only a certain, number of high schools across the country where the administration is going to back you and you're going to have the financial support of your families to be able to go to experience games like this. And I'm just very fortunate that I happen to be at one of those schools that allows me to do this. And again, I'm all about providing experiences. And if I can give my kids just something that's really cool, like going up to Portland and then driving down to Eugene to play at Outson Stadium, I mean, that's a life memory that I'm going to be able to give to my kids. And regardless of the outcome, it's all about, the memories at which you're creating for young people. And as a Salesian educator, I firmly believe that that's my job and that's my mission as a teacher and as a coach, is to get those kids into experiences that they may not normally have, and to go into Allen and play hopefully in front of 20,000 people at that really cool stadium against a collegiate coach and Chad Morris. I mean, what more could you want out of a program? Yeah. And I'm just lucky Bosco gives me that opportunity to do that.
Hey, Coach, talking about the good old days, our company started in 2015. And one of the first, I think it was the first game we ever put together, was at Don Bosco's 100th anniversary doubleheader, where we brought in Archbishop Rummel from Louisiana to play Don Bosco. And that was the first time I got a chance to see your team. And I think McGrew was a running back at that point, and he ran all over St. Peter's Prep. It was like 56-14 or something like that.
That was one of the best. That was one of the best teams. Sorry to interrupt you, Joe. That was one of the best teams we had, 2015. Sean McGrew was our running back. He was a senior. Quentin Davis was our quarterback. We ended up going undefeated that season until we got to the finals. We lost to a really good Corona Centennial team that had a running back named JJ Taylor. He's with the Patriots right now. He's a pretty good football player. Quentin Davis got hurt in the first quarter, broke his collarbone. So we had to play a young sophomore quarterback named Real Mitchell, but he battled and we competed that whole night. But that trip, Joe, that you talk about was super special for us because not only did we play in New Jersey, we got to go into New York and spend some time at Ground Zero, educate our kids, about the happenings from 9/11. And then we also got to practice at Mikey Field up at West Point. And I don't know how many high schools across the country can say that they actually got to practice at Mikey Field there on the campus of West Point. One of the most incredible opportunities that I've ever experienced. And we're sitting there and I'm just standing at midfield thinking, I cannot believe where I'm at right now with a high school football team.
Yeah, and the players that played on that field back in the 50s, some of the biggest names ever, Hall of Famers.
It's unbelievable. I mean, for any of you high school coaches that are out there that are nostalgic, go to West Point, go stand on that field, take a look at their football facilities. It gives you goosebumps when you just think about it. And I had got to take a football team and practice on that field. And it was life-changing for me. Put this whole game into a different perspective, obviously from the America thing and our troops. I mean, it was life-altering experience. I'll tell you that.
Yep.
Well, Coach, I'm looking at your schedule for this upcoming season, and I'm just shaking my head. It's like, man, I don't know why you schedule all these tough games in one season, but you do, and it's staring you right in the face. So you got to have some studs coming up to at least give you a shot. Who can we expect big things out of this year from St. John, Bosco?
Gosh, we have so many really talented players. And that's why we're able to play a schedule like this. But it's not, it's part of it, it's out of want, but another part of it is because that we have no other choice. We have a real small, pool of applicants to be able to try to play from year in and year out. And that's, fortunately why we're in the situation that we're in. Luckily Kahuku stepped up from Hawaii, Central Catholic from Modesto, California. Those guys are an up and rising program. Want to be kind of known on the national level as well. They're just south of De La Salle. So that's great. But I got a lot of talented players. Pierce Clarkson, our quarterback's coming back. He'll obviously be like a 3-year starter for us, part-time starter over the last 2 years. Defensively, we got kids all over the place. Peyton Woodyard's a safety. We have one of the top 24 linebackers in the country, Kingston Viliamuasa, who didn't play as a sophomore because he was coming off an injury in the spring. But he's back as a junior. It's going to provide, obviously a big strength for our defense. Marcellus Williams is a corner. Jayshawn Frosto Ramos is another corner. Really talented guys. On the offensive line, Sean Haney is somebody that's really done some amazing things. And then who can forget, Mateo Uyangalele, DJ's brother. Mateo's a two-way starter for us, plays defensive end on the edge, and also is a tight end. And he's one of the most dynamic, most recruited kids that we have in our entire program. So we're very fortunate for the kids that we have, and they're the ones that are allowing us to play a schedule like this, Larry.
Yeah, it's an awesome schedule. That's for sure.
It's going to be fun. I'll tell you that. Well, right now it's fun. We're in Dallas in August. I don't know how fun that's going to be.
So one of our Georgia posters, it's a good question. I never thought of this. It's from Rufus DeWoman. Going back, playing out-of-state games, there's only 2 teams that both you and Matter Day have played. Gorman and St. John's College from D.C.
Right.
Is that a fluke, or is there like an unofficial rule or concerted effort between you and Coach Rollo to not play the same teams?
No, it's just coincidence or happenstance, I guess you could say. Coach Rollinson and I, we certainly are kind of in a league of our own in terms of kind of where we're at our programs currently. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I'm just saying that we're the ones that are having a challenge to find games across the country. He tries to help me schedule games. I do the same for him. The showcase that we have that you mentioned, the Trinity League versus it's going to be Hawaii this year. That showcase, has allowed me to bring in teams like Milton from Georgia. We brought in St. Francis from Maryland. We brought in Good Counsel, DeMatha, guys from all over the place. And we brought in Nolan Catholic, from Texas. That was a good one for us to play Santa Margarita, but it's just kind of just happened. Scheduling is really challenging. Not only do you have to have open weeks, but you have to schedule teams across the country that potentially have open weeks. And then it has to line up. You know, you have to be able to figure it out financially.
Right.
You know, are you willing to travel? You know, we've played in 10 states. Texas is going to be 11 in the last 13 years, or going into 13 years for me. So for us, you know, it's an opportunity for me to kind of explore the country. But, you know, for us to just play, you know, those two common opponents, I think Bruce would be open to play anybody that we've played, and we would be open to play anybody that he's played. It just hasn't happened.
That's cool. And Larry, just so you know, as somebody who does the out-of-state scheduling for like 300 teams, the hardest 4 teams to find games for by far are St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, St. Francis, and IMG.
Wow.
They're I would say half the time of what I do, it's for those 4 teams. The others are easy. They take a couple of minutes, hours, days at the most. It takes weeks to find those 4 opponents that have the courage to play them. And kudos to the teams that are doing it, man. There's a lot out there doing it. You know, last year we had Springfield Central played IMG. Coach played East St. Louis. Miami Central always loves to step up. Thank God some of these teams, you know, like to challenge themselves, because without them, it would be much harder than it is right now. And it's already really hard.
Well, one of the things I've really experienced since I've been at Bosco is the fact that, you know, we progressively grew as a program. In 2010, we weren't playing, you know, DeMatha or Good Counsel or, you know, Peters Prep or, you know, St. Xavier. We weren't playing these teams. You know, we were playing just our local teams, and we were struggling, you know, and then it took us a couple of years to get, I think by 2012, you know, we had ascended to a top spot in the country, and we ended up losing to Long Beach Poly and Juju Smith-Schuster in the semifinals that year, but we were undefeated going into that game, you know. But what I really quickly realized was, if you want to improve as a person, you have to continue to test yourself against really talented people. It goes back to the Rocky movie, you know, when Sylvester Stallone is running against Apollo Creed, you know, on the beach. It's like, you know, you could run and beat somebody every single time, but unless you go and run against that guy that's just faster than you, you're not yourself going to get faster. And so I think that's kind of a cheesy, you know, kind of comparison there, but that's the mindset that you have to have. And that's one of the things, Joe, that you said. Kudos to the guys that are willing to step up and to play our teams and to can challenge themselves. I give those guys a lot of credit. You know, there was an article that came out from the Modesto Bee up in Modesto for Central Catholic, coach wanting to play this game and things like that. And I cannot praise those guys enough for wanting to challenge themselves and come out and play against a team like ours. And, you know, it's not like we always win. You know, I mean, we went down to South Florida and we lost. We lost twice to Bishop Gorman when Tate Martell was there, one of the best high school football players I ever seen. When Tony Sanchez and his brother Kenny were the coaches at Gorman, you know, we played Tate Martell. He never lost a high school game, I don't think, in his career. And we played him twice. So, you know, I don't think you can be afraid to play those guys. You got to go out there and try to experience it. And you're never going to know how good you're actually going to be able to get unless you go take on the best. And that's kind of
what we say. That's right on our website. It says to be the best, you have to beat the best. Right. So, and kudos again to teams like Oscar Smith, and this year West from Salt Lake City is stepping up. Right. Thank God. And I think as other teams notice that, you know, you guys are really, really good, but like you said, you're not invincible. You've lost before. Right. You know, others will follow them, and it'll get easier. But right now, it's not as you know, it's not an easy task to fill the schedule.
Without question. I mean, you mentioned that, you know, last year we played down in Virginia against Oscar Smith, and that was his coach. That coach was a phenomenal dude. I mean, he basically, we talked on the phone and he's like, man, you know, our kids really think that they know how good of a program we have because they've kind of dominated the local area. He says they have no idea what it's like from a national scene. And I hope you guys can come in here, you know, and kind of, you know, show us where we want to get our program. After the game, you know, we kind of handled them, you know, pretty easily that night, but he was more appreciative of that. And they ended up going to win the state title as a result. Yeah. And he, you know, told me, Coach, this made us better. This will make us better in the future.
All these teams that we just spoke about, Oscar Smith, East St. Louis, Miami Central, they all went on, if not to run the table in their states, at least got to the semifinals. You know, look at Duncanville after playing Mater Dei. They made it all the way to the final. So that's why you play these games. Remember Bergen Catholic several years ago went out to Mater Dei, got beat up bad, but playing them showed everybody where their flaws were. The coaches did a great job filling, adjusting, figuring out where they need help. And then they ran the table and won New Jersey. So that's what these games are all about, these out-of-state games. You learn from them. You learn, you play them, adjust, learn, and then you go on to win it all.
Right. And you even see it at the collegiate level. Even though, Alabama's in the SEC, but, who remembers the fact that they lost to, they lost to A&M during the season, and they yet go on and they ended up losing to Georgia. But Georgia had just lost a couple of weeks, got smacked by Alabama 2 weeks earlier. So, I think sometimes, not being afraid of a loss is going to ultimately help your team in the long run, because you can draw upon those experiences that had during that. And it's going to build character. It's going to build a lot of resolve within your team, and it's going to make you tougher. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do with this game, is using it as a small metaphor for life. Hey, you're going to lose in life, but if you can pick yourself up, you can get a little bit better, and you can continue to move on, and show the fact that you've experienced some growth. That's ultimately the whole, winning attitude that you're going to need to build the program that we've had here in Bellflower over the last 12 years.
Absolutely. Coach, let me ask you a question about college recruiting, because when you talked about earlier about the transfer portal, it got my mind to thinking, we're entering a different, in my opinion, we're entering a different era of college recruiting because of the transfer portal. I talked to a lot of coaches in Georgia, some in North Florida, and I'm hearing from them more and more that it's getting tougher to get their second tier athletes recruited. The superstar D1s, they're not going to have a problem. Right. But because so many kids in college are in that transfer portal, you got a lot of colleges now, that's their first go-to, is they're recruiting the transfer portal now. And sometimes these second tier kids at the high schools are getting left behind because of that. Are y'all experiencing that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
It's scary. Transfer portal is super scary for high school coaches and high school athletes. What's happening is, I'll give you an example. We had a Mountain West school come out during the spring recruiting, back in January. And they were like, we're taking 22 athletes in this class. We're going to take 22 athletes. In the past, they would take 22 out of 22 would be high school players. This year, 18 of the 22 are from the portal. Wow. That means there's only 4 high school kids that Mountain West school is going to take. All right, well, there's 18 kids at high school that, are not going to be able to be recruited, or their path to Division I is going to be different. Like you said, you look at the elite 4-star, 5-star guys, no problem. But what was also happening with those guys is they're waiting so long to commit or to verbally, say where they're going to go, that they're losing their spots to kids that are transferring in. Or, a kid transfers out and they bring in 2. And those scholarship opportunities are dwindling for the high school athlete, especially that second tier guy. And it's scary even at the collegiate level, because a lot of these kids are in the portal and have nowhere to go. Because, their schools are taking high school guys, they're taking portal guys. And some of these dudes that think, oh, man, I'm just going to go and I'm going to leave Alabama and I'm going to go play here, or I'm going to leave San Jose State and I'm going to go play there. It's not happening. And these kids are left without anywhere to play. So they're going to have to figure it out at the NCAA level, how it's affecting, both the collegiate player and the high school player. And they got to start looking at some data. How is it really affecting young people? And if it's, hurting somebody or any particular group, they got to reevaluate it. And they got to do something to make it a little bit more equitable, because it's not fair for the high school kid to just be, swimming upstream without a paddle, because all these portal kids are taking up their spots. So it's a scary environment right now, and we're trying to navigate it the best we can.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm hearing that your same sentiments across the country. It is a scary time for some of these high school athletes.
Without question. And, those coaches that you have talked to are absolutely right. I don't have any answers for you. All I know is we're going to try to advise our kids the best we can, try to educate our parents the best we can. And, we're doing that. We do something at Bosco once a month. We have a parent meeting, and it's optional to our parents, but we call it Football University, where parents could come in and we talk about a topic or we talk about some things that are going on in the program just to keep them, educated as we go through the calendar. And that was one of the first things we talked about. And, here it is. I have an hour planned meeting, and this thing went on for like 90 minutes, 105 minutes. We're sitting in there, talking about the transfer portal, talking about high school recruiting and what it's going to take for that second and third tier type kid, and how challenging it is. And ultimately I had to tell them, I don't know. I mean, I'm learning this as we go along, and I think it's still in its infancy before we can really make, a formal opinion on whether it's good or bad.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Joe, that's all the questions I had. What you got?
I have one more from another California fan, the OC89. He has a question. What would actually happen if you decided, or Mater Day decided to play IMG? What possible sanctions could the CIF impose?
Well, they would just keep us out of the. Well, I mean, I might lose my job for one. We're part of their membership, so I ultimately have signed on to support their membership. And, from an ethical standpoint, that's just not something I'm going to do. I'm not about that. I mean,
Did you get a waiver? Any way to get a waiver?
Not that I'm aware of, and ultimately, I mean, it's unfortunate. Mater Day did play them and they beat them when Bryce Young was a junior, I think.
Yep.
We ended up beating Bryce 2 weeks later, at Santa Ana Bowl that year. And then they turned around and beat us in the final. So, I mean, we played them, or Mater Day had played them. Chrono Centennial took them to the wire twice. It's one of the top public schools out here in California. I think IMG scored on a 2-point conversion one year to beat them. So we're certainly not afraid to play those guys and stuff like that. I question what, is it kind of a real high school? But then people say, well, how are they different than you, coach? You still get kids from all over the place and this and that. So it's a very delicate subject to have. Ultimately, rules are rules. And right now, we're just playing within the rules of the CIF Southern Section. I'm going to support them. I'm part of the advisory committee here in California, for the football in our section. And I'm going to support the decisions that they make. And right now, our state association said we're not going to play academies. And it wasn't because of IMG. It was more because of the basketball, in my opinion. There's all these little pop-up, schools that are in a shopping mall, doing an online education, but they got 5-star basketball kids, and they're kind of ruining educational-based athletics. And ultimately, what we're a part of.
What's weird is some states have that rule, but they allow their basketball teams to play IMG, but not their football teams.
Yeah, it's weird.
Not in Cali, but it happens elsewhere. That's why so many of us fans are frustrated, because we would love to see that game every year. IMG play you and anyone else in the Trinity League, but it is what it is.
I will say this. I mean, part of the thing that's frustrating for us, and certainly, we have our fair share of kids that come into our program, but there's a way and an approach that you're supposed to take when kids want to transfer in. There's systems set up to where that you're going to protect the eligibility of the athlete and protect the eligibility of the team or the program going forward. And you're certainly trying to make the right decisions, and for us, we're kind of under a microscope. We kind of try to make decisions that, are going to make sure that it's ethically sound so that we're not putting our program in peril by bringing on a kid that shouldn't be there. I just had some issues at some times with IMG calling my guys, blatantly, sending them packets in the mail, like, come to our school. And then the dude comes and calls me and says, hey, do you guys want to play? I'm like, really? You're going to try to actively come out and send my kids, admission information to IMG, and then you're going to call me to come play me? I just, that kind of stuff didn't sit real well with me, and I know some people on this podcast are going to roll their eyes thinking, well, Jason, you're doing the same thing in California. Well, I hope we're not doing that, because if we are, it's not what I stand for. We want to try to build a program that kids are coming, but I'm not sending propaganda out to high school athletes across the country to come play here. That's not something I'm going to do. We lost one kid, I think it was back in 2017, that went to IMG. He had a scholarship to Oregon, went to IMG. He had 30 less catches as a senior than he did as a junior in our program, and still ended up going to Oregon. So, I mean, really, was that the best interest of that guy? I don't know. But that's probably a topic for another time.
Yeah, to each their own.
Right.
Well, Coach, listen, it's been a fun. This has been a fun conversation, and we covered all kinds of topics tonight, from your program to the transfer portal to IMG and private academies, things like that. So I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. So, guys, if you enjoy this conversation tonight and this interview, be sure to check out our other interviews as well. That's located at nationalhsfb.com. And we'll provide this link to this interview so you can enjoy it in its entirety. So, Coach, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Best of luck in this upcoming season. And my gauntlet still holds. One day, I would like to see Lowndes High School play St. John Bosco.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, that's Joe Joe knows this very well. I've told him year in and year out, love to get down to Georgia to play. We want to play in the South. That's, we played down in Florida, obviously, but we want to play in the South, whether it be Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana. We're definitely, trying to get down there. You guys play such great football. One of our offensive linemen just early enrolled at Georgia, Ernest Green, and he's a 5-star left tackle and is going to do great things for them. So for us to expose our kids to that area of the country, I think there would be nothing better. We do want to get down to Georgia because you heard you got big crowds and things like that. So hopefully, it'll work out, but we need opponents in 23. Joe, start it up. We need
hook us up, Joe.
That'll be easy. If any of those South Georgia teams step up, that'll be the first game I book for 2023 for sure.
Hey, I know at least we have one opening in 2023 to start the season. Right.
Right. Well, hey, I mean, like I said, if it works out and it meshes and we can financially figure it out, it'll work. I mean, shoot, Milton came out in 2019, I think it was, played a heck of a game against Jay Sarah, which is another team in our league. That game came down to the wire, but you got to give those guys a lot of credit, kind of stepping out of the box, coming out here. And then look at what has happened to that Milton program since then. They're continuing to rise and get better and better and better. And I know their coach just left, but they got another guy come in there, and I think he's going to have aspirations to take it, to the next level as well. And Coach Clack did a great job. He's a good man.
He did.
And I give him a lot of credit for coming out to California and playing that game. Yeah, and I think ultimately it made that Milton community a stronger community.
Yeah, and he set the tone. More Georgia teams are doing that this year. Brookwood is going to Bishop Gorman, and I know there's at least a few others. So he started that trend because it was not happening. That was not happening. If you wanted to play your Georgia team, you had to go to them. He was one of the first ones to start traveling far away. So he also went to PA last year and beat St. Joe's Prep. So he has them going in the right direction. He did a great job there, and he always complimented me about his experience out there with the boys. Got to go to the beach and experience California. So like you said before, these out-of-state games are you want to win them a lot of the times, but we do it all for the memories.
Oh, without question. I mean, the team, you got to mention the teams from Utah. Those guys they're not afraid of anybody. The teams from Hawaii. I mean, our Trinity League showcase, we're playing Kahuku, which is the defending state champion. They beat St. Louis High School in the finals. And then in their section, they beat Mililani. And Coach York at Mililani is one of the most fantastic guys. Not afraid of anybody. That dude is like, come out and play us. He's a super aggressive guy. Kids play super hard. It made our football team better by having an opportunity to play those guys. And we got to play against Mackenzie Milton, who was a great quarterback, years ago. And it's just fun to be able to experience these guys. Like I told you, we played Tua Tagovailoa when he was at St. Louis. And, Sean Clifford, who's at Penn State, we played him when he was at St. X. Right. So it's so fun to play all these kids across the country, and it just makes the country a little smaller. So high school football is a great platform for us, and we're going to keep doing it as long as they'll have me at Bosco.
Yeah, we had Max Pop on and also Jeff Fisher, and they love these games because it makes it easier to rank teams, because you got a lot of teams playing each other, or you could look at games where you could daisy chain them down and see who really at the end of the year, who the top 10 are realistically versus just guessing.
Oh, without question. I mean, we know this is mythical. I mean, we talked at the outset that we're defending undisputed national champs, and it's institutions like yours and communities like yours that allows that to happen. But I don't think you could be, even in consideration for any of this unless you're willing to step outside the box and to go play some of these people. And I think if you want to be in that discussion, You got to go challenge yourselves. And again,
right.
that's not always going to be with winning the whole thing. What gave us a chance in 19, because Mater Dei beat us, in our stadium, in our home place in 19 during the league. Now it was like a 7-point game or a 10-point game, something like that. And we had a touchdown call back late in the fourth quarter that might have even made it a little tighter. But then, we didn't fall very far because we played the number 2 ranked team in the country. We were currently number 1. They were 2. They saw how competitive the balance was. We rolled through the rest of the season into the playoffs and got to play Mater Dei again, and it flipped. We were 2, they were 1, and then we beat them. So, giving yourself a chance and an opportunity and the platform at which we have that allows us to do it makes those mythical national champs a little bit more objective than so much subjective.
And Coach,
Absolutely.
you got to go back at least 8 or 10 years to find a mythical national champ who didn't have an out-of-state win. That's the one thing in common. If you go back, for the most part, 8-10 years, everybody who won it all, if you look at the majority of the polls, won the majority of the polls, the common denominator is they each had an out-of-state win against a really good elite team.
Well, I mean, that's the only way that you're going to get any type of metrics against, in the comparisons and things like that. And, a lot of people, I've seen some stuff on your board, Joe. A lot of people want to compare the different types of areas of football. Is California better than Texas, and Texas better than Georgia, or Georgia better than Florida? So, Ohio, and then you got the northern part of the East there in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and stuff like that, and all the way up into Maryland and DC. But it's so fun just to go play these guys, and a lot of times, Nike used to have the opening where they'd have all these athletes come in from all over the country from these different schools. That's not happening anymore. So how do you go out there and expose your kids to this? You got to go play them. And I'm telling you what, man, for any high school coach out there that wants to have the opportunity to go travel, there's so many more life lessons you can teach your young men than just playing a football game. There's so many different really cool areas across the country you get to stay in. It builds a lot of team camaraderie. It helps you build a culture within your program, teach a little bit of discipline and kind of self-independence for a bunch of young kids. It's just awesome. And if you ever have the opportunity, start small. My first game that I ever coached at Bosco, we did an overnight trip down to San Diego. Started small. We've gone up to Bakersfield, played up there. So it's all about that small little steps in order to get to where you want to go. You didn't jump out of the box and then go play Thomas Aquinas in your first game. That would have been insanity. We built to this thing, and I think every program out there in the country can do it within their own, area. And I'm not talking about just the elite guys. You could be a Division 12 or 13 team here in California and find a like opponent out there, to go play. So it's not just like, oh, well, you're saying that because you're one of the top teams in the country. Well, if I wasn't and I had to take a step back to another program, so one of the first things I would try to convince them to do is to go play somebody in some other state to give our kids, an understanding of what it's like to play football in Colorado or Texas or Florida or something like that. So it's just fun.
Well, the next time you see me in person will probably be August 26th at Allen Stadium in the Dallas area. So I look forward to that night. One of the more people ask me as for Prep Gridiron Logistics, what are your top memories since you started the company? And my number one to date is Mater Dei at Duncanville last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing St. John Bosco at Allen. The high school football world is looking forward to that game. So we can't wait. And thanks for doing all that you do, not only locally, but nationally, and spending some time with us tonight. A lot of people want to hear what you have to say, and it's going to be enjoyable for everybody who watches. So thanks for your time, and let's do it again soon. Maybe at the end of the season when you're celebrating another MNC.
Yeah, let's hope so. Fingers crossed. I mean, we obviously have set the table. We just got to go out there and play the games. And, if we're fortunate enough and get some breaks go our way, we at least have a shot to go do this. I think the schedule is going to kind of allow that. Beating Mater Dei and the teams in our league is certainly not going to be easy because those guys are equally as talented and equally as well coached as we are. So there's a lot of good programs out here. But God willing, we stay healthy enough, get some breaks go our way. Hopefully we'll be able to talk again in the future.
Thanks again, Coach. Have a good night.
It's a pleasure meeting you, Larry. Thanks for having me a part of your program.
Yes, sir. Let's do it again. See you guys.